Ever wonder what you can actually do with AI and Salesforce? Look, you've probably used ChatGPT or Claude or one of these LLMs to be like, hey, can you teach me how to do this validation rule or build me a formula, or like, hey, I really want to make a flow that does this or that or the other thing, and you just didn't do anything. Like, you just gave you an output and then you tried to like put that into Salesforce and had no idea how, and you followed its steps and it was all wrong, and Salesforce threw you a bunch of errors. And that's actually how most of us have used all of these up until now. But what I want to show you today is how I've actually built this. And I want you to take a look at this flow. And this is just a picture, so you can believe me or not believe me, but in this video today, we're going to show you how I built this, not through Salesforce's UI, but just through prompting and AI. And there's a little bit of setup involved, and we're going to walk you through it all. But that's what we're going to do today. This holy grail, I just built this flow. I just told it what to build, and it did everything. It said, hey, I'm going to go look at your org, check out your metadata. I'm going to figure out what the heck things mean. I'm going to go and build this flow the best way I know how. And then I'm going to test it, actually test it in the org that you want me to build it in. And all of it happened just for me writing a few lines. And I'm going to show you exactly what I did. We're going to walk you step by step through this so that you can do the exact same thing. Let's get into it. Hi, everybody. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Graham Bischoff, and I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 15 years now, because I'm old. And some people have come to know me as Salesforce Yoda, but I worked internally at companies like Yelp and Google, and also built my own consulting company. And lately, I've been kind of getting into AI stuff, because who isn't? But today, I actually wanted to get into something useful, something that you could actually use, would be helpful. And specifically, we're going to do this in OpenAI, because OpenAI and Salesforce actually have some pretty cool things that you can do. We're going to leave Agentforce out of this conversation. We know Salesforce goes over it more than anybody. But really what we're looking at doing is like potentially adding a developer or an admin to the team that you would not otherwise have. And look, this isn't going to be a panacea. We don't expect this to solve every problem, but it will be super helpful for just things that you don't know how to do or things you may not know how to learn, and it being able to add those things pretty quickly and doing it all self-contained. I think that's the pretty big picture. And hey, everyone likes an eager beaver they can add to the team, right? So it'll be an actual helpful coworker, and not like the one who started microdosing because it helps productivity. And look, regardless of that, this is still going to be fairly technically challenging. And I'm going to try to walk you through it as best I can, but there's still going to be some decent stuff. Nerd! Yes, Ogre, we get it. Nerds. That's okay. We're going to nerd out a little bit. Why don't you sit back and we'll dive into each of these steps and show you exactly how to set this up so that you can have your own little admin or dev at your side. Okay, let's jump into a few technical details that we need to get through and set up before we get this party started. Nerd! Yeah, Ogre, chill out. Seriously, like, that movie did not age well. Like, don't go watch it. It did not age well. But the first stop along our journey is going to be GitHub. And if you don't know what GitHub is, go find it. We're not going to cover it in this video. That's just way too long of a topic. I will tell you, though, it was invented by one of the gods of our industry. He invented it, and then he also invented Linux. His name is Linus, and Linus is the man. That guy literally is a god to us in the computer science industry. Like, you learn about him and what he did in school, and the best part about him is he gives no like, literally no. So Linus, you go, you honey badger. Anyway, to get to use the service, you're gonna have to sign up for an account. They're free, so don't worry about it. There are paid ones if you want to do some other work, but like Microsoft owns them. They're secure. They're the default that everyone uses. I highly recommend you go get them. I highly recommend you learn about it in your spare time when you can. We're just not going to cover it in this video, but it is crucial to the steps that we're going to do. So you just want to learn some of the basics. There's lots of YouTube videos out there on this stuff. You want to set up a repo. It doesn't take that long to do. So that'll be our first step. Okay, and then once you've done that, once you've gotten a GitHub repo, we have to then pull all your Salesforce metadata out of your org and stick it in that repo. That's how the bot knows what's in your org. You have to pull it out and you have to tell it. So there's lots of programs to do that. There's lots of like paid services. So we use GearSet over at CloudConnects. Compado is another one that we looked at, very famous. Flowsum, very popular within enterprise organizations. There's free ones too, though, like Salesforce's DevOps does that for free. There's lots of options. There's really geeky ones too. You get into like SFDX and command line, which I could go over, but I'm not going to go over in this video. It's too large of a topic and it's just way too much material to cover here. But there's lots of good information out there on the web. Just figure out how to take your metadata out of your org, plop it into a repo, and that's going to be the fastest way to get started. That's just generally good for a lot of reasons, but especially for this, it's a prerequisite to be able to use OpenAI and Salesforce together. No! Okay, I swear, it's the last time we'll have him do that. But we are going to get pretty nerdy when it comes to code. And there's going to be code that we input, or code like commands that we put in later. And don't worry, we set up a walkthrough. It's in the description. You can, download that. It'll walk through everything here. It'll have code that you can copy and paste where you need to. So we've tried to make it as easy as possible when it comes to that, but it will get kind of nerdy. Okay, so now that we've gotten the GitHub repo set up, we put our org data in it. There's just this like one little file that we have to add on top of it. I'm actually going to walk us through this, but it's the agents.md file. And most importantly, we're going to walk you through how to add this in there. And that's really important just so you have a file, know where it is, and the agent can read it. So OpenAI is going to read this file. It's going to know like, hey, this is where I deploy things, and this is where I test things. This is how I do all the things that I need to do for the Salesforce org that we brought all this metadata from. So we're going to show you how to do that real quick and hop right into it. Okay, so got my trusty laptop here, and we're just going to go ahead and roll up into the repo. And you really want to go to the Force app main default folder. So that's where we're going to place this file. I'm just going to call this file agents.md. So you need to call it agents.md. It's very important to name it exactly that. I'm just going to copy this in here real quick. And you don't really need to know what all this stuff does. It really just tells the agent what to do, and specifically like how to deploy and where to test. And that it should do that every single time to make sure everything that it does is working. All right, and that's it, and we're done. So that's a simple little step. One of the last prerequisites we have. Let's jump back. Great, now that we've gotten GitHub all set up, we've gotten our data in there, we set up our agents files, we're good to go, right? Well, almost. There's just like one last thing we need to grab real quick before we set up OpenAI. So we're gonna grab access tokens. And unfortunately, like Salesforce puts a lot of roadblockers in our way to do that, which is fine because like they need it for security and it's like actually important and whatever. But what we're gonna wanna do is show you how to grab that out of any org, and then we're gonna place that in OpenAI. So it's the last thing. And when you do this, just make sure you're copying these things down. Like I wouldn't say a notepad because like you're not actually gonna write these things out, but like copy and paste them somewhere because you're going to need them later when we get into OpenAI. So whether that's online document or like an actual notepad app on your computer, whatever it is, just make sure you're writing this stuff down as we're going through because it's going to be really important later. All right, I got my trusty laptop here again. So you know I'm going to do something boring. Don't worry, we'll get into that. So this is kind of a little hack that I came up with because like Salesforce, they kind of hate when you get your access token because it like provides access to everything that you do throughout all your applications. So yeah, they're going to try to block us, but we got some little hacks, so I'll walk you through it. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go in and you're going to click the little gear icon. Accidentally went to setup here. But what you really want to do is get to the developer console, okay? And now we're going to provide documentation, so look in the description for those links. But there's a little piece of code I'm going to have you paste in. All right, and I'm going to write it out here, but essentially there's some code that brings up the session ID, which is the access token. They're kind of the same thing, they just name them differently at different spots. And what we actually have to do here for whatever reason is Salesforce won't let you directly access the session ID through a function they built to access the session ID or access token. So we have to split it up. We have to like do the first part, and then we're going to add in the string like dash dash remove dash dash. And what that's going to do very specifically is allow and trick Salesforce into giving us that. So hopefully they don't find this video and hopefully they don't take that away, but that is definitely something I do quite a bit. You can just copy and paste it here. I wrote it out, so I had time to talk through this and explain all the fine things, but then you just look at the log and you scroll down and you just take that whole string and copy it somewhere. It's very important, okay? And that's where we get the access token. Now, remember, you will have to go through and redo this a couple times where you are actually going to like, every time you want to use this, like you have to go in every once in a while and put that token in again and update OpenAI with it. It's not something that you put in once and forget about forever. It actually like loses its effectiveness typically every 8 hours, but it can be as low as 2. So just be aware of that. If things start breaking or things stop working, like go get your access token and put it, especially if a day or so has gone by. All right, but now that we have that copied, let's get on to our next segment. All right, so you can see I got my laptop again for the funness of going over all these things, as I'm sure you guys love it. Real quick, before we get in to actually setting up the environment though, to do this, you need to have Codex available. And so you need to have a plan tier on OpenAI and ChatGPT that has this. So you Pro, Teams, Enterprise, like one of those, you're gonna want that because you're gonna have limited access, if no access, if you're trying to do the free plan or anything else. So make sure that you paid for this feature, but that's all you gotta pay for. You don't have to buy like, systems or AWS credits or anything like that. Like everything is self-contained within OpenAI. And so that's probably the best part about this is you don't need anything else. You just need GitHub, Salesforce, and OpenAI. That's it. So I'm going to dive into creating this environment. It's a pretty technical setup, so feel free to like rewind or jump back to this if you miss a part or if I go too fast anywhere. I also have a specific walkthrough in the description, so I've linked to that. So feel free to download and follow along there as well. Okay, so we're going to hop into Codex and hop into environments. It's just in the upper right-hand corner when you go into Codex. And we're going to pick the specific repo, which is really important, okay? And so we're going to call this Codex YT for YouTube. And then we're just going to add in a description. And then you're going to scroll down to the code execution. And you want to make sure it says universal on the container. And here we're going to add quite a few environment variables. So the first one is SF token. This is really important that you name it very specifically because if you don't name it SF access token, it won't work, especially with the underscore thing. So we're going to add an edition. I'm using Enterprise. You can use whatever edition you have. If you have Unlimited or one of the other ones. We're going to copy the instance URL from the environment. That's super important. And then just copy and paste that access token. But remember to scroll over and scroll over and scroll over. It's just so freaking long. And scroll over. And then once you hit remove, just remove all of those. Boom. And that's it. You got that perfectly down. Okay. Now we're going to want to set up the script. So just copy and paste this from the walkthrough that we give you guys. Very specifically, this is going to be for like a dev org instance. I also have one in the walkthrough for scratch org instance. That's a little bit more complicated, but I gave both versions just in case people were interested in how to do that. Then you want to go down to agent internet access, turn that on, give it unrestricted access, and make sure all the methods are there. You don't really need to know what all those things mean, but once you've done that, create the environment. And then I always recommend doing this, which is going back and you can click edit. You can also test the connection before you save it, but I always recommend saving your work first. And then click the connect to terminal. And now what this is going to do is it's going to run through that script that you just copied and pasted there and make sure it can do a couple things. One, that it can reach out and download the Salesforce like code library that it needs to download to operate. But then two, it's also going to check that it can log in to the instance that you gave it and make sure it can utilize the alias so that all of those environment variables that we've configured work. So you just want to watch it, and we're going to watch it here for a second. I'm going to try to speed up the video a little bit just to make sure it goes faster, but it's going to take a minute. So like, don't rush when you're doing this. But unless you see something that says like terminal error, it's passed and you're good, and then you can start using it. All right, cool. So since it's running a little faster on the screen, it's actually passed and we're all good. So now we're gonna head over and see what we can do with this bad boy. Now, what can we do with this clever little AI that we've set up so far? Well, let's start by getting some answers.
You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not.
Okay, I'm sure it'll be much less pretentious than that guy. By the way, I don't know about you, but I totally nerded out. Nope, Ogre, no. Going back. Totally nerded out when that came out. I was very interested to see, like, what are they gonna do? How are they gonna pull this off? Like, I went to the midnight showing. It was a big deal. Love the Matrix, such a good. Anyways, let's get back to the questions that we want to ask this new futuristic AI that we built. Okay, now, got a laptop back here. I'm just going to enter a simple question. But before I do, just remember, you can ask it pretty much anything. I'm just using this as an example. But like anything you want to ask, you can basically ask about your org. Like any of the information that you wanted to find out that is stored inside your metadata, it can answer most of those questions. But one that I really like is there's a nice little button on almost every field, which is where is this used? The only problem is it's for custom fields only. You can't do it on standard fields. And that's where this thing is really cool, because let's ask it all about what dependencies from automations are on the opportunity stage field. All right. So we just want to know like what's been fired from the opportunity stage field. And now the cool part about this is it will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not gonna like have this weird reference. Like it has to look up like stage name as an API name. It has to look up a whole bunch of stuff and understand all of those things. And as you watch it go through this log and do all that, like it's just gonna totally understand everything that I'm talking about. So we'll give it a minute to run. And remember, this is not the fastest acting thing. It actually does have to like look stuff up and iterate through quite a few things. But there are notifications in OpenAI to tell you when it's done. But yeah, it does. You can see, you can watch it go through all the files, look at everything that it needs to look at to try to really get a good idea of like what's happening here. All right, great. So you see, came back, said, hey, look, there's no automations, artifacts that are present in the repository. It's just talking about your org metadata. And they're right. In this org, I don't have anything that fires off page name, like close one or anything like that. And I know that's rare, but at least that's the case here. So it can answer our questions. And so you can ask it really anything. You'd be like, hey, like, do we have campaigns set up? What do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Now, it is very code oriented, like developer oriented, admin oriented. So it's not gonna have general business questions like, hey, for my industry, is this really good? That's probably not going to happen, but you can ask it things that are very specific, like, hey, did we set up profiles and permissions for this particular user really well when it comes to this? Or like, if I wanted to exclude these particular users or profile types, or like, how would I add that to a validation or something like that? It will know all of those things. It'll be able to look at all of your code and make recommendations for you. And it can actually build stuff for you too. So we'll get into that next. So it's really important that we just like ask it a lot of questions and try to understand things. It's the first step, and now the next step is to actually get it build stuff. All right, moment of truth. We're gonna have this thing build us a flow.
What?
Okay, let me get into position. This time, we're gonna build a flow. So we're gonna go back to the same place we asked a question, and we're gonna input our stuff, and then we're gonna click code instead of ask this time. And here I've kind of copy pasted in Just create a flow whenever an opportunity is closed one. It's going to roll up the amount field, which I've relabeled TCV, to a TCV on the account. And this is going to run through and do everything, right? So it's going to run and say like, okay, let me go look at your org. Let me see all the metadata that you guys have. Let me find out what TCV means. Look at the stages, understand which one's closed one. And then once it's done all that, it'll look at the account and say like, hey, this is the field I want to roll up to. And I'll go ahead and build a flow based on all of those things. And once it's done building the flow, I've also added in here just a few test cases. So like, hey, also build these test cases, which is like, hey, we created they have an account, no op, there should be no roll up. We have an account with an op, set to close one, it should roll up. We have an account with an existing op, this is another op, should be some of those two ops, stuff like that. And so I recommend just a real quick list of everything in there that you can do really quickly. And that makes it really simple. And this thing will just talk through and go through, and then at the end, it'll run those tests that it built for itself based on our input. And that's pretty comprehensive. Most admins, I would say, actually don't get that far in doing what they're doing. So it's not only going to write the entire flow, but it's going to make sure that it can be deployed. And it's also going to take the tests that we told it to do, create test class, and run those test class in the org that we want them to be running. It's pretty comprehensive. And if you're scared, like, oh my God, I'm an admin, my job's over. No, someone still has to tell it what to do, someone still has to make sure it makes sense, and someone still has to make sure that it works. But it's a great tool for people who like, I don't know how to put all this together, I don't know if this is right, but I know how to tell someone how to do something, then this is a great tool for you. And at the end of this, you'll see, on our initial run, sometimes it's not perfect. So sometimes it'll be like, hey, I ran the tests and they failed, which is what the outcome and result of running this was. But it compiled and it uploaded it. It just went and ran the tests, they didn't work. And so in those instances, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix that by simply just telling it like, hey, can you run those tests again, right? So it looks like those tests failed. Would you please update the flow to handle those errors? And then you just click code again, and it'll rerun all of this stuff. Now, on the right side, when it gets done, it's gonna show you a bunch of file updates. There's gonna be a lot of XML in there. Like, don't worry about that stuff. That's just what it uses to tell Salesforce, like, hey, these are the things I wanna update. You can go a little crazy trying to dive into a lot of those things unless you really understand what it's doing there. But yeah, once it's done, you can check that it works on your own after that, but that's it. The flow that I showed you in that environment, that's the thing that we just built here in this, without having to do anything, just letting it know what we want. And so I would recommend you play around with this, try to add new things there. It's really good at fields, objects, validation rules, flows, pretty much anything that you can think of. It's gonna be pretty good at it. And look, before we head off, there's one final segment where we just want to talk about why this is really important. And especially, you know, if you want to roll this up to your boss, or like you're trying to explain this to someone who doesn't really know a ton about like Salesforce development or being an admin, the next segment's really good for you. So stay tuned. Okay, so you may be wondering, hey Graham, we did all this technical stuff, that was cool, but who cares, right? Like, this is just some nerdy stuff that some guys learned to do. And the short answer is no. This is actually really important stuff. And we really think through on this channel and just generally at Codex, like what actually is impactful and what matters. And I think this is really a big step up in the ability to work in Salesforce and generally just like on CRMs, period. And to do so without having a super technical background. Now, as much as I would like to say this is the holy grail and we're there and it's perfect, it's not. Like, look, we had to do a lot of technical setup, which, you know, even with my walkthrough, you may run into errors that you cannot resolve and probably have to ask ChatGPT about anyway. But ultimately, like, we're getting to a point where, like, real development work in real time can get stepped up and done and completed. And I don't want people to think about like, oh, this is replacing my job, or like I don't need as many admins. Like, technically that may be true, but that's not actually the real value add here. I think the real value add here, which people have not really paid attention to all that much, is that the time to do something has changed. And I think the real value add of all this AI stuff is that like the time to implementation has drastically sped up. Because these bots, even though you have to like pay attention to them, they require some maintenance and things like that, drastically increase your capacity, which means the time to deliver is significantly reduced. So you can spend a lot more time listening to stakeholders and people in the business and trying to think through like how that would work operationally or the design of the thing that you're doing or whatever it is, and a lot less time on like, how do I build a flow? Like, what are all the components I need to put in that? What is all the technical work that I need to do? Or like, hey, how do I go hire a developer to like code something for like, you know, something's gonna take them 4 hours, but would take me 3 days. Like, that kind of stuff really matters. And so a project that looks relatively large or could take, you know, 3 to 6 months can now be done in a month. And that's a huge time savings. It just like compresses iteration, potentially to an unhealthy point if it's done the wrong way, but like really, really impactful in terms of business operations. Because when people are like, hey, I want to do this, and you deliver something, that time frame really, really fast. And that's really the magic here, is that like the time value on doing things, like, hey, we're gonna get 3 big initiatives done this year. It's like, well, now we're gonna do 12. And the impact to businesses can be tremendous when that happens. And we're talking like substantial impact. And that's really, really why this stuff is important. And it's only gonna get better. Like, this is where we're at today. And if you've looked at the Will Smith spaghetti videos, or you know anything about that on AI, like, used to look like garbage. And then a year later, it looked, kind of weird, but not so bad. And like now they can basically replicate them eating spaghetti. And while that's like an odd thing to like use as a measuring stick, it's really, really helps to understand like how fast this technology changes. And so when we're looking at this specific use case, I want everyone to understand like it's only gonna get better. And I really hope OpenAI dives into Codex. Like, the coolest part about this is everything I've shown you, like once you set it up, you can do it all on your phone. Like, I have sat there like while bored waiting for a train or the, you know, some public transportation, or like, you know, my kids are off doing some soccer game or activity or something, or whatever it is. Like, I've been able to do it all on my phone. I've been like, hey, go make this thing, review it in PR, because both GitHub and OpenAI have applications, and you can use Codex on your phone. Like, it's all available, it's all there. That's insane. Like, that's a crazy thing that never existed before and is only gonna get better. So that's a huge step in a direction where you're no longer limited by the amount of time something takes, and also by your technical prowess for a lot of these things. It doesn't mean we won't need people to like understand architecture or, you know, the capabilities of a platform or anything like that, but like, it's a big leap forward. And I think we should all just take a moment to kind of settle in on that and play with this and implement it as quickly as possible. So that's to say, that's everything today that I wanted to talk about. I think this is a big deal. I hope you all enjoyed the video. You know, comment down below if you want to hear anything else, if there was anything that we left out. It's really, really helpful for us, because like there's a lot of stuff I couldn't cover in this video because it would be like 4 hours long. But, you know, click subscribe, do all the YouTube things, because we want to hear from you guys. We want to make sure that we're covering this. I think it's really important. I could talk for 3 hours about this, but obviously like that video, honestly, it would be a lot of jokes. So I hope you subscribe to the channel so that when we do put out new videos, they're helpful for you. We can dive deeper into this kind of stuff. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.